Yes.
I got hijacked.
Yeah.
It was a setup.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were double fisting over there.
Well, I can double fist.
Okay. We're good. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:01 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 10th, 2024, and I will call to order the regular meeting of the Millwood City Council for September. Lisa, would you please give us a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Stravens,
Present.
Councilmember Sanders,
Present.
Councilmember Van Hees,
Here.
Councilmember Culler,
Here.
Councilmember Beasy, here, Mayor Freeman.
Present. Let the record reflect that we have all 5 council members in attendance and thus a quorum for business. So at this time, Pledge of Allegiance. Lisa, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. So we do have a few changes to tonight's agenda. First of all, for agency reports and presentations for Under Sheriff Kittlestaff, he unfortunately cannot make it tonight. He has another commitment that he must attend. So we are going to take that off the list. Second, we do have another change, item 9D, Spokane County Sheriff's Department interlocal agreement revised term. That has been rendered moot. The county went ahead and executed, the Board of County Commissioners last week executed the original agreement for the full term, so we do not have a revised term anymore. So it was signed by the BOCC as we initially negotiated. So item 9D is unnecessary and will not be needed. And then the last is we do have a change to our consent agenda that I will ask at the time, which is we did post the first register on the 3rd, and since then we have had some other invoices come in, and so we'd like to amend the register. It's on your desk. And so I'll be going through that, but we will, prior to taking action or requesting action on the consent agenda, I'll be making a request for an amendment to the consent agenda at that time. So, is there any member of the council that would like to propose or request any further changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor of tonight's agenda with the requested revisions, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, tonight's amended agenda is approved. Thank you. And that brings us to, since we do not have an item for tonight, this is our other presentations. Mr. David Milliken will have a presentation for us with the 9 blue zone elements of a healthy community. Mr. Milliken, please.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is David Milliken. I've worked at the Hutton Settlement for 27 years now. I'm also a resident here in Millwood, and I'm excited to share what has been about a 7 to 8 year community development experiment at the Hutton Settlement. So most of you, I assume, know where that is. Even though we're outside of the boundaries of Millwood proper, Millwood has been the community for our kids for over 100 years. So this is their home. Back in 2014, we decided to start an initiative to deepen relationships with our kids. We brought in what was called an attachment-based parenting model that has dramatically reformed the work we do at Hutton. Soon after that, we realized that we need to work more on just interpersonal relationships. But what sort of healthy environment are we creating for our kids when they walk out that front door of their cottage on campus? So we started doing a deep dive into community development measures and frameworks that would be applied to a small neighborhood of 50 people on our campus. So back in 2017, I became certified as a National Geographic educator with National Geographic. And during that time, I was exposed to the Blue Zone framework. Those of you unfamiliar with Blue Zones, back in 2004, National Geographic funded a massive study to try to locate the healthiest, longest-lived populations on this planet. Now, what they found was, if we could go to the next slide here, what they found was 5 locations, and these 5 locations all had these common elements, and we'll talk about that in a moment. These locations are Costa Rica, Nicoya, Costa Rica specifically, Loma Linda, California, Sardinia, Italy, Okinawa, Japan, and Ikaria, Greece. These are very diverse spaces, but they all had some common themes. So what did they have in common as far as creating an environment of health and longevity? We go to the next slide. So the Blue Zones, in their research, and they had some of the top researchers, demographers, people doing the work, they actually found things that we would all probably intuitively say, yeah, this makes sense, but unfortunately aren't always practiced within individuals or communities. So they found actually 4 main areas that these people were doing. And I want to stress that these people were not sort of trying to discipline themselves to do this. Their environment was set up to create this. So they had no idea about exercise programs. That was foreign to them. No idea about diets. That was foreign to them. They were immersed in an environment in their community that made the healthy choice the easy choice. So how did that play out? So first of all, these communities moved naturally. So they had walking paths. It was very pedestrian friendly, biking and walking that just naturally created physical health. They were very much focused on gardening. A lot of gardens, most of these people had individual gardens or they had community gardens that were producing healthy food. They also had, were very good at cooking. Also connection. So these were communities that did not just pass on their elderly. Their elderly were wisdom holders, and they were involved in the homes and were cared for by the family. These are also communities that had intentional groupings of individuals, whether they were at a faith community or whether they were social clubs or pickleball clubs. These people gathered on a regular basis, and through thick and thin, those friends were available. These were usually groups of 4 to 5 people. They also found that these individuals ate wisely. Because they were gardening, they had healthy food available. And then as far as their outlook, most of these individuals had access to various faith communities, and they knew how to unwind. They knew how to engage in anything from social hour to naps to walks. Now that all makes sense, right? But unfortunately, we have a lot of communities, and Hutton was one of them at the time that was not designed or engineered necessarily for that. We'd lost some of that. So if we could move to the next slide. So the question was, okay, well, perhaps we could take the Blue Zone wisdom and actually apply it to our small neighborhood of Hutton. We'll go to the next slide. So what we found was actually what we were wanting to do with that was actually being done by Blue Zones as well. So they decided, let's take these elements and try to reverse engineer, take what we know and create a community that would develop that would promote these things. So they decided to focus on people, policy, and places. I took that model and we said, let's look at our policies, let's look at the people and what we have on our place, and let's create a Blue Zone at Hutton. Now, we're not an official Blue Zone, but doggone it, we're pretty close. Now, this is something that is being done across the country. 75 communities are already putting in these things in place. Everything from Fort Worth, Texas have done it, and now Walla Walla is an official Blue Zone community as well. Next slide. So the Blue Zones at Hutton, what did we do? So over the past 7 to 8 years, we were very intentional. We ended up building a trail system on our property. We have 319 acres. So we have about 3 miles of trail systems, and we walk and hike those on a regular basis. We started growing multiple gardens. We actually have 3 very large gardens, and we grow a whole lot of our food. A lot of fruits and vegetables, nuts. We also have honey. We have beehives. The second thing we did was a much more intentional effort in engaging the community and community service. We in most cases, are putting on the community meal there at the Millwood Community Center. Our kids are learning how to serve the community. We are also, we formed clubs, these small groups of friends where these kids can practice things that they're interested in. So whether that be learning how to make jewelry or wood crafting or music, and we started being much more intentional in providing those opportunities. And then we gathered. Every Thursday we gather together, we share a meal together that is cooked from our farm, and that is one of the most powerful experiences. So the outcome here has been multiple alumni who keep coming back, and they say it's not just about the individual relationships they formed, but there's something about the community that is so powerful for them that they just want to keep coming back. In fact, now we have 7 individuals that are staff members at Hutton because they feel that sense of community. So these kids lived there as kids, and now we're giving back. So next and final slide. You know, how does Millwood support this? Obviously, we're looking at Hutton as a neighborhood, but you know, these kids are walking and driving and riding their bikes through this community. They're attending school, they're working at businesses in this community. So what do you guys provide? Well, there's a lot of walking and pedestrian spaces that are here. I mean, there are some spaces I think we all kind of know that are not the greatest for pedestrians, but we have located those places. Community service opportunities. We're working with faith communities. We're working with Millwood Impact so our kids can get out there and learn how to give their gifts to other people and empower them. Healthy food options. I mean, we've got a community garden up there that has a lot of food growing in it, and that's just scratching the surface of what can be done in this community to produce healthy food. And Hutton would love to be a part of helping to explore that in the future. And then, of course, community gatherings. I mean, we have Millwood Days. We've got all sorts of fun events that our kids are a part of. They engage in that, and our staff do as well. That gives them a sense that this place is their home. And then, of course, green space, whether it be, you know, the park here or these beautiful corridors of tree laned, you know, in the central part of Millwood. Those are places that are respite places, reflection places, places that kids actually like to go and walk and hang out. So Millwood has certainly been a part of this, even though we are outside of these the formal city. We do take advantage of what you all have helped to provide for our kids, and we thank you for that. So that's a real brief snapshot. I know I have limited time, but I wanted to present to you guys what we're doing at Hutton, what we're continuing to do, really foster these different 9 principles, help them eat better, help them be able to get out and move better, help them be connected to faith, to people, to family, helping them understand how to handle stress, helping them find a deep sense of purpose, deal with the anxiety and depression that so many of our youth today are dealing with right now. So, any questions?
Questions?
Thank you so much.
Okay,
for
yeah.
presenting.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have any questions?
You know, just a lot of opportunities there that you're, a lot of irons in that fire. But
Yes, but good irons, for sure. Yeah, in fact, you know, I got to tell you, I'm a skeptic. So I also like to travel. So I've hit these blue zones and talked with centenarians, and I've taken alumni and staff as well. In fact, Saturday, the executive director, Chud Wendell, and 6 alumni are heading to Okinawa, Japan, to go to the blue zone and explore that as well. So, yeah, we want to see, hey, what is community like? And what's that wisdom that's out there that we don't want to lose? We want to capture that and practice that. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So we appreciate Dave coming in and giving us that presentation. That brings us to item number 6 is our public comments received for items proposed for final action by the city. We have received some public comments for items that are on our action that are not final action. So we have received 2 written comments regarding the wholesale water service, and 1 written comment regarding item 9B, the interagency agreement between City of Millwood and Department of Commerce. Those who have been supplied to you. Have we received any comments other than these 3 that have been provided to council?
No, two were in the packets already, they were received prior to the packets, so they were in there, and these were the ones after.
Okay. Any questions on comments?
I have one question. I just saw these today, except for the one from Tina who came to all of us. There is one from Doug that says, can we hold on one of our action items? But it looks like that there was a reply from somebody that's basically saying it's a moot issue, that it's not influencing.
We can discuss it during the,
Oh,
I mean,
my
we can talk
apologies.
about it, no, we can talk about it during the action item, but I mean, obviously, it's at your discretion. Staff is proposing that you consider it. If the information provided is such that it allows you to make a decision this evening, that's your choice. If you wish to push it off for another meeting, we can discuss the merits or lack of merits of waiting for another meeting on it. But I'm happy to do it during the item. So we have those remarks. We have no other remarks by mail or no other remarks in person, or comments on action items. So that takes care of number 6, item 6. Item 7, executive session. We have no need of an executive session this evening. Thank you. So our action items for tonight for first presentation is ordinance 543, the wholesale water service. This ordinance was drafted by Mr. Wurst in response to the potential for wholesale water service from wholesale water to other jurisdictions or entities, other water districts, at request of some of those districts that are encumbered by a lack of current available certificated right. So what this is, and I'll let Brian take this, is the first presentation of this. In response to some of the letters, it is not up for decision tonight. And what I am interested in is, and it's nothing that needs to be voted or considered immediately or in the next month or so, or 2 months. What I am most interested in is, after reading this ordinance and looking at what is being proposed, which is actually the physical conveyance of water from the Millwood system to one or potentially other entities, what information council would like to have brought into them, rather than hit you with, everything from the hydrogeology of the Spokane Valley Raton Prairie Aquifer to a complete 5-day course in water law. What information would you be looking for? And we can arrange those presentations. And then you may have the opportunity for thoughtful deliberation. But in order to get that out there and begin the process, I wanted to bring it forth for your presentation to you for consideration, and then direction back on what we're looking for additional information. So, Mr. Wurst, do you have anything regarding the ordinance itself?
Just a couple comments. One of the public comments raised a good point with regards to section 020 subsection A, which talks about if there's a conflict between the code and the contract. I think to the extent the council would want to see that, I think it should come back to say that the code prevails over a contract. We're not, the administration would not go forward with a contract that should otherwise be contrary to the law of the city. So that's one area that I think going forward we'd want to come back and revise for certain. I think it's important to understand that there has been effort by the city for a long time, and the council's been advised of it ongoing, that in terms of the water rights that the city has, your water rights are plentiful. There is a community need in other public water sources in the county for water rights. And so what kind of sparked this process in terms of evaluating it from the legal standpoint, which we have outside legal counsel specific to water rights looking at it, as well as I can say former Department of Ecology Guy Gregory, who oversaw the Department of Ecology, Water Resources Division. Looking at it, we've been looking to those who have implemented or otherwise done this in other jurisdictions. First step is to kind of establish the set of laws or the rules for the city, which would be the code provision that's before you. The other part, I guess, just ensuring that we address some of the concerns. This is water that's not being used by the city. The city's not going to go out and wholesale water to other jurisdictions that it was otherwise being used or that would otherwise not be available to the city. In the event that the city needs it, if there's emergency or there's interruptions to water supply for those jurisdictions because the city needs it, that's what the code covers. The city's interests are going to be protected, number one. And keeping in mind, wholesale means it will be sold. It will be a revenue generator for the city as well. So that's really the only comments I have. I can answer any questions on this first consideration if you have any or wish to proceed forward.
And then, before you jump in, I just want to make one other comment. One of the comments that came in had to do with the dichotomy between selling water and then asking for conservation. They are not exclusive. Conservation is not, because we do not have a formal ordinance or code regarding conservation of water like the city of Spokane does or things like that. Conservation basically comes down to not wasting water, not putting water to in terms of beneficial use. And so there was some concern from a resident that on one hand we were talking about wholesaling water, and on the other hand we were asking people to conserve water or not use so much water. City's not asking anybody to curtail water usage. When we send out leak reports or we say you have used a significant amount more water than you used last month, that's information from to you as the ratepayer that our meter reading has changed and you may want to take a look at it. But it's not saying don't water your lawn. It's not saying don't take a shower, don't do any of that. What it's saying is our data shows this. If that was in June and suddenly in July you decided you wanted to turn on the taps and make the yard green, you know what's going on. And so from that standpoint, that's information. Conservation is about not wasting the resource. A leak is a waste of water. If you're out there watering your garden to grow prize pumpkins and you're putting a lot of water to it, that's a beneficial use. That's your choice. We ask that you pay for the water that you're using because that supports the system, but we're not saying don't do that. So conservation is simply the idea of not wasting the resource. And as Mr. Wurst was saying, yes, we have a lot of certificated right. We have a lot of right on paper. If we don't use that water, if we don't put that water to beneficial use, we may not have that in the future. So we're not this is not selling something that we don't have, but at the same time, if the city is very comfortable with the possibility that we could lose the right that we have in total, not rights that we've put to beneficial use and can demonstrate a need for, but the additional right we have, if the city is comfortable with that possibility that those rights could be, that non-applied right, that inchoate right could be taken away, then that's choice that the council would make. But what I definitely want to do for council is give you the information that you need to make an informed decision. And so I would look for comments from the council going forward as to who you would like to see come in. You know, Mr. Sander, you've worked in this a long time. We've got lots of very, very intelligent people on this, and so I'd be interested in what level of information council would want to see, hear, and presentations of that. And I will arrange those, and that doesn't include me. So, Mr. Stravens, I think you had a comment.
So what percentage are we not using? So we're allocated so much
Realistically,
realistically.
75%.
Really? So
If
we're
you-
not using 75%, or we're using,
We're not using 75% of our certificated right.
okay.
Plus or minus 1%.
Just roughly, okay, okay.
Yes.
I mean, and under normal circumstances, the municipal water law says we don't have to use it, except the other piece of that is this whole aquifer is gonna be adjudicated because of the issues with Idaho. And what Idaho's doing with their water, it's, we get the leftovers, you know? So that changes the whole use it or lose it situation, so. And I think as part of the folks who worked on the water use efficiency rule, those words were chosen in particular because conservation feels like you're giving up. And the whole intent of that rule was to make sure we had beneficial use. And that the water systems themselves were doing a lot to keep their unauthorized water number, low. I mean, and part of that was concern of a number of organizations that nationwide, there are some of the largest cities that lose a ton of water. Primarily because they transport it hundreds of miles, and those lines are old lines, they're leaking. And I think a lot of the opposition to the water use efficiency and to the municipal water law is that everybody had over 50% loss, and that's not the case. You know, there are some, there's still some, that pump 100 gallons and they account for 50 of it. And they're just, and some of them are treatment plants, so they're just throwing their money down the tubes, well, down the ditch. At the same time, I think the municipal water law is what protected our water rights because anybody else, you use it or you lose it. You know, you got 5 years to put it to beneficial use, and it's very clear that public water systems are not fully developed in 5 years. I mean, and we don't, and Millwood's a good example. We've got a lot of, not a lot, but we have vacant properties that are gardens today that aren't residents, or there's some other vacancies that aren't being used, and that's the way it is for a public water system.
And I believe that as we were taking right or being given municipal right, there was always a vision that Millwood would expand or would incorporate other areas and grow out. And to that factor, Millwood never did. And so we have the benefit of having that certificated paper as inchoate right. We have not put it to, we as a municipality, we have not put it to beneficial use, but under state law, we can't lose it. But the only thing we can do with it is, right now, is purvey it to another system. Yes?
So we're assuming though that the water usage, I understand what you're saying, it has to be used now and you can't be, but I think it is fair, especially as we go through the comprehensive planning, that we should be projecting in the future. We're a tree city, and what water it requires to keep our campus alive, or our canvas alive today, may not be the water needs that we have in the future. Additionally, if we ever decide to perhaps embrace a different way of doing more food production here, that would require more water. And another thing that I've heard from citizens, because you brought it up, yes, there was this sense that we don't want to be told to conserve, but there was also a very real thing. Why are we increasing our rates? Why are we charging money if we're just gonna sell it to other people? So I would like to also understand, what do we plan on doing with these revenues if we were to pursue this? Because to me, it would seem that we should have the top of the line water system, you know, that because we have gone through these things where we know there's leakages, we know there's things. To me, I feel like we need to fortify what our city has before we start offsetting. And so I would want to configure that somehow into the discussion as well.
Well, you're in luck, because in my mayor's report, we're going to talk about upgrading our cast iron water lines and what that's gonna cost.
Wonderful.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in terms of revenue, what's the projected, do we have, is water, do we sell super cheap? Does it, what's, just some
So-
idea?
I was just gonna say, so there are standards from the AWWA as to what is a applicable rate to sell water at. It's based on a number of factors. You sell it as, you sell it by equivalent ERUs and how much it costs to produce, and then maintaining the infrastructure that produces it. It's not a cash grab. That's for sure. It is not done with the intent. What it is done is the intent that it is a revenue stream. It is a way to supply water to other areas that do not have water. Basically supporting the regional comprehensive plan and allowing, let's be honest, we have had a significant push for not changing our zoning, not densifying, not anything within Millwood. You're gonna have a bunch of people coming to this area. If you're gonna densify somewhere else, they're gonna need water. If you want densification somewhere else, those areas that are gonna densify need water. We're all in this together. If we don't wanna take on a bunch of densification as part of our comprehensive plan, then we need to partner up and make sure that other folks that are willing to take that on have the backbone for what they need. It is intended for us to make the same level of revenue that we would make when we sell to any other commercial entity. It's not, there's not a tariff but here's the thing, it's a rate. You want a tariff, the council wants a tariff, you can do what you will. Typically, when these sorts of rates are proposed, it's proposed as selling it as if you were just selling it to another citizen. They just don't live in or another entity, they just don't live in your city boundaries.
The return would be up to whatever is finally determined to be a tentative agreement or negotiated agreement that would come back to the council for approval. So ultimately, the council would be approving what that rate is. There's a way to market or to determine the market rates on those. But ultimately, if what would be proposed to the council is insufficient, if the term is too long from a comfort level in terms of planning for the city, that's gonna come back to the council for ultimate approval.
And there are more than, say, there's enough interconnection to more than one district that may be interested?
There can be. There can be. There are districts that are water poor, and right now, under state law, the only way districts can move water between them, particularly with inchoate rights such as we have, which non-fully developed right, is by the actual physical purveyance of water. And that gets a little more complicated because it gets into what's known as wheeling, where water's put in one point and it moves around through people's systems and things like that. But to make a long story short, there is no municipality in the state of Washington that can transfer the paper, the certificate, if it's an inchoate right. Now, if it's a fully realized and fully developed right that is fully certificated and is turned into what's known as wet water, or water that has been put into beneficial use, then yes, you may transfer that. But for people who have, for municipalities that have an excess portfolio of water rights, such as we do, such as City of Spokane does, their only way of doing that is transferring, is actually selling the water. That's what City of Spokane is doing with Airway Heights. They are putting water in a pipe and sending it to Airway Heights, and Airway Heights buys that water. That's how they're making up for their shutdown of their wells from the PFAS. But they cannot buy right from City of Spokane. Yes?
Is there any way to lower our rates, to offset the fact we're selling water?
I think the discussion becomes it may keep us from having to raise the rates for water based on some of these things that we're starting to see with working on, as you were saying, having a top of the line system from the cast iron that we can talk about in here. The idea would be many hands make light work. We have a very constrained body of ratepayers right here. Prices continue to go up. We have maintenance that has to be done, that we have to figure out a way to pay for that maintenance, and it's not getting any cheaper as we go along.
But you can't see a way that it subsidizes our own citizens' water bill.
Yes, because that, whatever, when we sell the water, we're selling it at a rate as if we were selling it for our own system and our own infrastructure. We're not giving any money to any other purveyor for their system. If they need to take that water and then they need to charge whatever they need to charge for that water to maintain their own system. We charge it out as if it was just another house, but it's a virtual house outside of, or a virtual building, a virtual house, not in the city. And so that is a way for us to increase our revenue stream in a way without actually increasing the infrastructure burden that we would have by building out for more homes, businesses, things like that.
I have one last question, and I understand that this is, so when I started, Mr. Richards was the clerk, and at the time, there was a discussion around us potentially annexing, or at least trying to vote to annex other areas. I'm not trying to reopen that conversation in live, but I'm saying, would us doing this ever prevent a future conversation of that happening?
So what is unique to us is that we are a municipality in this area. Around us are irrigation districts. They are fully, so north of us is Pasadena, west of us is Orchard Avenue, east of us is Irvin, Trentwood. We can't annex them. We would have to actually, if we wanted to go into Pasadena and supply water there, the city of Millwood would have to buy the Pasadena Water District. Because they are a municipal corporation. They're a corporation, they're an irrigation district, so they are a special purpose district, right?
Yeah.
So as a special purpose district, they have rights under RCW. And so we just can't go, we're Millwood. We've incorporated, we can annex in the land, but we can't annex in the water district because that already exists. That's the same thing as City of Liberty Lake. They have Liberty Lake Water and Sewer. City of Spokane Valley, they have a myriad of districts, Modern, Vera, Carnhoe, a lot of those little districts over there, Model, Spokane number 3, all of those guys. Yeah, so there's a whole patchwork of little districts. Orchard Avenue, Urban, they're all in City of Spokane Valley. They're within the City of Spokane Valley, but they provide water to their customers, and they are a special purpose district, and you just can't take over a special purpose district.
So you're saying I'm just trying to clarify, so you're saying there are two separate issues, Shauna, because us doing a vote and getting Pasadena all aboard 20 years from now, you will still be contending with a separate water district and wouldn't be like, oh, I wish we still had all that water under our certification. Did I understand you
Yes.
correctly? Yeah.
It's just like, when the city annexed all the way to Vista. We still got 2 blocks that don't use our water.
They were already on Orchard.
They were on
So-
Orchard Avenue, they're part of the Orchard Avenue Irrigation District, but they also happen to be in the city, so they get a sewer bill, but they don't get a water bill.
Just as a side note, the city did try to annex the Orchard Avenue population, the land. They weren't interested.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so
I was more talking the Pasadena area, and I also know that it was dropped like about 7 years
So-
ago. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
before we make decisions, I want to understand fully, like, what are we committing ourselves to?
Right.
For 20-something years, did we
Yeah.
just take something off the table?
So if the city of Millwood decided they were going to annex in the upriver urban growth area, there is always the possibility that if Pasadena, let's say that area continued to grow and the Pasadena Water District had issues with being able to supply, we could put a pipe over the bridge and tie into their system and supply them water. But we could not transfer our inchoate right over to Pasadena because it's in the district and you would not be able to drill a well there because they have they're in their own water system, so you wouldn't be able to change this point of diversion into their service area. Or unless you did overlapping service areas, but you still couldn't tie, that's why you need a water rights attorney.
That would be complicated.
That would be really complicated.
But, the water is a separate entity. The water is a separate entity here, even though it's the city. That's why the city hall and park pays the water department for the water.
and if for some reason there was no city of Millwood, there would still be water district, city of Millwood.
Yeah,
Still a
Millwood
water
Water
district.
District, that would have to move in, that utility, the water itself would have to move, would either have to be, actually, that would be really interesting.
Be acquired by the county.
Yeah.
The Department of Health would then look for a water purveyor. I'm dealing with this in another county. If you have a public water system, or a private water system for that matter, that disincorporates, unincorporates, no longer wants to exist, there's a county statute that says the county then steps in basically as a receiver for that public water system. And then that is either the county working with the Department of Health then tries to find, coerce, force a public water system to assume that service area in that system.
Involved with a couple of those receiverships, and it's not an easy thing, but the people sure are happy to get rid of the
Yeah.
former owner.
Well, that would be just interesting from a case-wise standpoint, because then at that point, if you were a municipality and you dissolve, what would happen to your inchoate right if it was sold off to you'd just lose it? I think it would just evaporate, wouldn't it?
You need a water rights attorney on
Yeah,
that one.
so it sounds like at a minimum, we need to have one of our attorneys come in, either from Mr. Martin or Paul, come in and present to the council. I'd be interested if you would like Mr. Gregory to come in and give his perspective from the agency and the future coming in. But we can begin to arrange those conversations. And that's why this has been brought before you, is we need to start this. It would be a departure from what the city normally does. But I think as we talk further, and to Shauna's questions, we are constrained. Our rate base is constrained and is not growing. But costs for maintenance of that system continues to go up. And so this is also an ability not just to assist other districts, but for us to basically gain a virtual population, for us to alleviate some of the burden, not alleviate future burden, as we'll talk about, alleviate future burden on our ratepayers.
Well, our past water system plan called for a lot of things we haven't done because we haven't had the monies to do them.
And Matt and I have been talking about that, and we're gonna talk about that here just as a informational thing, because we're gonna have to, we have a potential for a funding mechanism coming up in mid-2025 where we would apply for a loan or something, but we need to decide how much we want to encumber and what we want to look at, because there are some economies of scale and things like this take time and planning to be prepared to do it.
So, when you bring in the water rights lawyer and everything, is there any way that we can see if, in Washington State, with all the adjudication that's already gone on the west side of the state, has there ever been a municipality that, or a cluster of municipalities who have been in this decision and didn't? You know, I just feel like, yeah, if you present only people who are pro this, then yeah, we're gonna conclude that this is the only option. But I do know that there is a huge adjudication going on the west side. Are there cities that have been confronted with this decision and we're like, yeah, we wish we hadn't done it? Just curious.
So there's only been one adjudication in the state of Washington, and that is the Yakima Basin, and that was only for surface water.
Okay.
And right now, they have not begun the adjudication. They are planning to begin the Whatcom and the Upper Columbia adjudications.
Okay.
And so there are individuals that can come in and tell you what the law says. But has somebody been through a groundwater adjudication process? No.
Okay.
That is the next big thing for the Department of Ecology to undertake. And that is why they are starting in some smaller areas, some smaller basins, before they attack this basin. So they're going to do my guess would be they would do the Little Spokane, the Main Spokane, and Latah WIRAs, water resources inventory areas. They would do those 3 WIRAs to adjudicate, and they would adjudicate both ground and surface water in those. But no, to your question, no, there's not been an adjudication that's been fully out. The Yakima adjudication, known as Aquavella, what did that take? 15 years? 20? Over 20 years it took to complete the adjudication just for surface water.
And I didn't know where we were in Whatcom, but I will tell you it is a topic of conversation and has been for the 2.5 years I've been there. But to my point, is there a way for us to survey people? You know, when we do our rate changes, we try to find comparables. Is there any way we can find a comparable that was confronted with this decision and take a more comprehensive look?
That brokered water and said that they were sad that they brokered
No,
water?
they don't even need to say they're sad. I'm just curious, is there any other places that have been confronted with this decision and what did they think about? Because right now we're being presented by you, which I understand, you know, oh, we should need this, this, and this. I would love to have a more comprehensive understanding of what are the elements we're supposed to be weighing.
I will look into that. And so I guess from that standpoint, I will attempt to find a municipality that has that is wholesaling water. There are some on the west side that is wholesaling water. City of Spokane is not good at this point because they are doing it as an emergency measure for Airway Heights, and there is a significant amount of strife in that relationship. So that's probably not it. I think, yes.
Yeah, there are a number, City of Everett, City of Seattle. I don't know if Tacoma, I think Tacoma has a few, but Seattle has a bunch. And they've had them for a long, long time. And what the buying utilities that were doing was using the water whenever they needed it, but really putting the demand on the City of Seattle's capacity to meet the peak demands. So the City of Seattle changed their way and said, okay, we're going to charge you a flat rate, and anything over that, you're going to pay very much because we're going to build more storage. You build your own damn storage, and that's what they did. So a lot of the cities and the areas in Seattle, with their own system, they were relying on the infrastructure of Seattle to meet not only regular demands but also the peak demands.
Do you know if there was anyone our size or even kind of, I mean, cause Seattle and Tacoma, we're not comparable to Spokane.
We used to have some in Walla Walla
Okay.
that we brokered because Walla Walla built a power plant. They replaced their 13-mile leaking old pipeline with, under pressure and made a power plant. But for the FERC license, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission license, they had to put that water to beneficial use. So we had an intertie agreement with the city of College Place, and then College Place had with another irrigation district. And so when the irrigation water was, so from about October to April, they were using City of Walla Walla water. And that was going great. And the utilities liked it, everything else, but then Home Depot decided to build in College Place on side of the road instead of Walla Walla side of the road. And the city council got upset and canceled the agreement. So, so College Place has to build a whole bunch of storage and additional wells, but that was, it wasn't a water issue, it was a political issue.
So while this is first presentation, it's obviously not going to come back next month for any sort of vote. What we'll do is I will attempt to budget some time with our either Larry Martin or Paul Dempsey from Halverson Law to come in and give a presentation to the council on the legal mechanics of this. I will also look for a con view of water brokering and talk to some other attorneys that I know on the west side and see if we can find somebody who would speak to some of the potential pitfalls of water brokering for the brokering side, because many of these sound like it's more of a issue for the recipient side than the brokering side.
Again, Longview has a couple of interties, one with the water sewer district, but the water sewer district became a partner in the treatment plant. So they actually own part of the city of Longview's water system, So I imagine if it came to a new tank out on Butler, if we wanted to build a new tank and they wanted a new tank, we could partner, we get a bigger tank or something. I don't know. That's a little bit different situation altogether.
Any other questions? Awesome. So we'll work through that for the next few months and we will proceed forward from there. The next is our consent agenda. So this moves to the items for final action tonight or for decision. Let's see, where is that? Okay. So the consent agenda, we did discuss the amendment of the consent agenda to include for the claims, for the August 2024 claims, you in your packet were presented a claims register ending on 8/31/2024 for a total amount of $422,488.41. The treasurer has since processed additional claims that we have received that came in, and that brings us to the end of the month. And so we are looking to adjust that total for the claims from $422,488.41 to $472,876.63, an increase of $52,678.35. So that would be the amendment for that.
No,
Yes.
no. The increase is $50,000, 388.
She's correct. I read the utility fund. I did
Yeah.
not read the second page.
Yeah.
There is an increase of 388.22. It's on the provided sheets.
Yeah, they're right there.
So, that is the amendment to the August 2024 claims. So at this time, would any member of the council like to take any of the consent agenda items separately? The consent agenda consisting of the recommended bid award for the 2024 asphalt patching, the draft council minutes for the August meeting, the August payroll, the amended August claims, the August treasurer's report, and then included in there is the asphalt patch bid tab form. So any member wish to take any of those items separately? Not seeing or hearing, do I have a motion on the consent agenda as amended?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the consent agenda is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. The amended consent agenda is passed unanimously. Thank you. So that brings us to item 9B, an interagency agreement between City of Millwood and Department of Commerce for the Growth Management Act Periodic Update Grant, otherwise known as the PUG. Amanda, you want to take this one?
Sure. So, as we started discussing a few months ago when we were talking about the work plan and everything, this is the draft agreement for the first half of the funding, $50,000, that would conclude on June 30th, 2025, approximately. As we went through the work plan and everything, and based on, I believe, probably recommendations of what they've learned through the process with the other jurisdictions, they've proposed some deliverable dates changes to all be June 30th, 2025 for this first round, and I'm assuming they'll do the same thing for the second round. So this agreement is just for the first round, from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, and the deliverables associated with that. Do you want me to go ahead and address the comment that came in as well?
If you wish.
Okay. So I was forwarded the comment that was received. I immediately reached out to Department of Commerce for clarification. They were able to respond back that the wording, I underlined if on section 2 there. It turns out that this grant is not funded by the CCA, I believe is the term. So we can actually strike that section 2 if you so choose, because it does not apply. I inadvertently, just so you know, I'll disclose, when I left for vacation, I wanted to make sure if this moved forward while I was out of town, I added the requested language to the website. I can go ahead and remove that because it is no longer needed. So we did get a response. It has nothing to do with the CCA funding. The other part of the question was why it wasn't discussed in August. It came in on August 21st for consideration. And then it can be reviewed as a two-step if you so choose. We just cannot bill for the deliverables that are already completed until the agreement has been signed. We have about $15,000 worth of deliverables completed that can request reimbursement, and that was the work plan and the public participation plan. And then I guess I would defer to the mayor on the last part of the question from that, on the money being included in the budget. Are there any other questions on the grant agreement?
So I included the section of the client, of the Climate Commitment Act, that pertains to where this was coming from. It was attached here. It comes from the account, and it's specifically, there's no, section 29, part B. Did we budget for it? Yes. We can spend our money, but if they're offering us money with no strings attached to doing it, I would suggest we, since it's kind of everybody's money in the state, we avail ourselves of what we have paid into it through gas fees, everything like that. It's not like it isn't the citizens' money. So to that end, if you wish to table it for another month, that is, and consider it for another month, that is perfectly acceptable. As said, it came in halfway through, and it's a standard type of contract, so it doesn't have to be done, but it was something that we have expended city funds on that can be reimbursed. I'll look for direction, look to the council for direction.
Well, I know, so you mentioned there could be a part from, that's on the website that we can strike. I don't fully understand.
So section 2 of the agreement refers to the Climate Commitment Act, and it starts with the word if.
Oh,
I was
gotcha.
heading out on vacation. I wanted to make sure the city didn't get sideways in any way. So I went ahead and put that little paragraph that they requested on our periodic update webpage. We don't need it. I can strike it.
Okay.
But I wanted to, for full transparency, wanted to let everybody know that's why it was on there, because I didn't want anything to be missed while I was gone.
Thank you. I really think that's reasonable. I mean, I would, since we have agreed to the two touch, if there's no penalty, it's my understanding this is the first touch, correct?
Yes.
So I would be inclined for us to vote on this next month, especially in light of, unless there's some consequence that I'm not fully understanding. My inclination is to sit with this for a month and really get into the understanding of what's been concerned.
Would you like section 2 removed concerning CCA?
To me, that feels super reasonable. I don't also understand why it was up there as well.
Standard contract.
Initially, you know. But I look to the rest of the council to,
Sounds good.
yes, please.
So just so you know from staff, it's not gonna change. You're gonna see exactly the same thing come back.
Gonna say, is this negotiable?
I know, it's not negotiable, it's gonna come back to you in exactly the same form. So we can hold on to it for a month, but we're not making any changes to it.
Well, we
can't make changes to it. As such, it's not going to, it'll come back in exactly the same form next month.
So my comments were not in anticipation that there would be a big change, but we have a protocol, and to me, I'm totally open to, and have in many occasions voted day of. We were presented with information, but if there's no time sensitivity, I would like to better understand so that we can prepare ourselves and understand what the concern is. But I also defer to the other 4 members of the council.
I'm fine with 2 touch. Be consistent.
So we will bring it, sounds like you guys want it to come back next month?
Sure.
All right, so we will bring this back to you next month for, so I would say that, if the council has any questions or concerns, we need to get those before next meeting.
Sure.
So be looking for those from council.
with Commerce, if there are concerns, we probably should have those within the next week, because it will take at least a 2 to 3 week process to funnel through the state agency.
Well, okay, so realistically, if any council member believes that there is some change that can be made to the language of this grant proposal, it's not gonna happen. This went out to every city in the state of Washington that's doing comprehensive plan updates. So, I mean, we can understand it more fully, but we're not gonna be able to change that grant. So, yeah, we'll bring it back at the next meeting.
Can I just say something about the 2 touch? It's sometimes not even anticipating that we wanna change, it's just that we wanna understand what we're voting on. And sometimes when we get pieces of paper that are literally that day, we just wanna fully understand.
This went into
This was
your
not this
packet.
day, this was in the
They-
packet.
this-
This was actually briefed last month at the meeting that this was coming
Okay.
in. We hoped to have it at the council meeting, we didn't.
So I'm hearing, I said multiple times, if there's a huge consequence or this is not an option, then I will not bring it forward. And you guys said there wasn't, and now it feels like there is. This comment, I was not handed to until I had already signed these, and it was 10 minutes to 6.
That comes in command talks.
Yeah, so that's
So
what
go
I
ahead,
meant,
it's-
that's all I was saying, is sometimes we're just, for me, I shouldn't even speak, for me, why I like the 2 touches, I like to actually read and, you know, understand and be able to respond like, oh, I did look up that thing that you suggested, and it's not that I'm gonna make a bunch of changes, it's that I wanna understand what the concern is. To me, that feels very participatory governance.
We will bring that back at the next meeting. So that brings us to item 9C, which is the Spokane Valley Fire Department interlocal agreement for inspection services. recommend and accept an authorized signature. This was presented at the last meeting, and so this is your second touch on this item. And so this would be for fire inspection services. Are there questions based on this? We have a representative from SVFD. If you have any questions for them?
No changes from presentation last month either.
We're just looking for a motion to authorize.
Yes. I
Make a
mean,
motion.
well, first we're asking for questions. If there, doesn't sound like there's any questions.
I think we covered it last.
So is there a motion on the authorization for entry into the interlocal agreement for fire services between SVFD and City of Millwood for fire inspection services?
I will make a motion to have the city enter into the interlocal agreement for law enforcement services provided by the, oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one.
Interlocal agreement for inspection services.
Provided by the fire department, Spokane Valley Fire Department.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I don't think, they already provide the services throughout the city.
Yes.
We're just memorializing that contract.
Right. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, that agreement is authorized. Thank you very much. And so that brings us, as we said, 9D, our interlocal agreement for law enforcement services was signed by the Board of County Commissioners, so we do not need to contemplate a change in term. And as I said, Mr. Kittle's staff looks for coming out and discussing. They are looking at actually recruiting for the Millwood officer beginning here either the end of this month or sometime in October. So they are going to put the position out there with the intent of having an actual officer in Millwood in 2025. So he is he was disappointed that he could not be here tonight to discuss that and wishes me to, yeah, well.
So I think the biggest unknown at this point is what our thoughts are regarding when the person is here.
So I would,
The hours.
right, so I would urge you, and that's what I kind of wanted to bring back. You've been for years now receiving the intelligence reports. There is that heat map or the heat sheet that they have included that shows when the call volume was the strongest in Millwood. What I would do is I would look at that and I would use that to kind of formulate your questions, understanding and remembering that deputies typically work 4 10-hour days, and that it would be very difficult for us with the Sheriff's Guild contract to deputies' contract to negotiate anything other than 4 10-hour days. Yes.
I did talk to Under Sheriff Kittlestaff at the Argonne Project meeting.
Okay.
He said they were amenable to possibly doing 312 so that they could do both rush hour in the morning and evening, possibly.
And what I would say is that's a great idea, but do you want?
I'm just saying that might be an option.
Okay,
I'm
because
not saying I want that. I'm just
yeah,
for everybody else here.
I think kind of understanding from the citizens, it's more presence than less presence. But I'm not. I mean, you can have that discussion when Undersheriff shows up. I think kind of what it comes down to is we're not gonna, even if we asked, I don't think we get 5 8-hour days just because that's not what they do. So I think 410s or 312s or something like that is kind of where we're at, but based on the heat maps and things like that, if there's 4 days that we look at, and typically they're 4 continuous days, so you kind of got to pick a start date and you get the 4 days after that. So, but information that comes in, things like that, that you want to ask regarding that, but they are excited to to get started on this project.
I asked undersheriff if we could have an officer every other hour.
On a rotation
And
basis.
if I remember right, he was not happy to see you even before you asked your question.
He was not, he did not take that very well.
Yeah, he didn't find that interesting at all.
Well, he was impressed that I could do the math.
Roger, why are you working for the county? So that brings us to item 9E, which is the 2026 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update Community Survey. Recommend approval of the survey. So Amanda, please.
So, per the periodic update work plan, I have crafted a survey to be sent out. I first got feedback from city staff on some of the priorities to make sure, because I've only been working with you all for about a year. So I wanted to make sure I got a full picture of what we were looking at. I incorporated those, took the draft survey to the planning commission. It was the vast majority of the meeting. We spent going question by question, line by line, got some fantastic feedback. I incorporated that feedback into this draft, minus the one picture change out on the Imagine Millwood master plan. I now have a generic picture they switched it to essentially that we can utilize for now. They had concern over the train tracks. And rightfully so. And so all their modifications have been included in. They recommended approval of it with considering city council being the second touch basically on it. And the work plan had this going out mid-September. If everything looks good or you need any modifications, I'd be happy to incorporate those. And then we can get it going live on the website. So that's my summary. I won't go through it line by line with you in expediency, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that are on it or cover any particular questions you have.
I love the survey. Will there be aggregated information that we can have? Or, I mean, I can take the raw data honestly too.
Oh, no, I would, yeah, I mean, I'll give you everything you want.
Perfect.
But yes. So I believe, now you're testing me, I didn't bring the work plan. December, I think, is the joint meeting between council and planning commission where we go over the results. We'll run the survey for probably about a month through about mid to end of October, depending. I usually leave it flexible to see how many we have coming in. And if we have a significant amount that come in hard copy, we have to have time to enter them in to the program. And, the other thing I forgot to cover is there's a big section right in the middle, really large section actually, of the survey that's all about the brand new Parks and Recreation element. That's something that you guys have never had before, and if we can get that incorporated in there, that will guide us in order to get a plan approved by RCO and apply for grants.
So the survey will be online, primarily online,
Yes.
but if somebody wants a paper copy, they can have a paper copy.
Yep, and I will go through and make sure it's formatted nicely for the paper. Sometimes it doesn't always come through real pretty for paper, but I'll make sure we have it the best we can for
And
that.
how will the people of Millwood know that?
So we advertised it at Millwood Days. We have the big board up. Oh yeah, right back there.
And in the lobby.
Yep, and in the lobby. And we had the QR code. Anybody that came to the booth, we advertised it. We said coming soon. Right on the website, it says coming soon. I will replace that with a link to the survey. We'll also will be doing a flyer, which I have to develop here very soon, sending out in the water bills so that everybody knows it's available. I will let stakeholders know it's available, sending out emails directly. And I believe we had 6 or 7 sign up directly at Millwood Days for email notifications in addition to the Millwood community organizations. And so I will be direct emailing it out to all of them as well. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So if everybody's reviewed the community survey, do I have a motion on the to approve the survey and send it live?
Make a motion to approve and send it live.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, is passed unanimously. The last item, 9F, is the appointment of Lisa Castles as the city clerk and our public records officer. Lisa has been doing a great job as acting clerk and has taken on all the other established processes, which a lot of it she was doing even when Christina was here, generating minutes, keeping track of all of the packet items, everything like that. And to that end, I would like to appoint her to the actual position of clerk. And at the same time, because she's also been handling that and is willing to take on the role, she would be the City of Millwood's designated public records officer. Any questions for this appointment? Do I have a motion to appoint Lisa as clerk and records officer?
I make a motion.
I second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none opposed. Lisa, congratulations. You are now the clerk and public records officer. Awesome. So that concludes our action items for this evening, and that brings us to our reports. So right now, we have our treasurer's, acting city clerk, and code enforcement report from Ms. Matkin. But I guess, yeah, you go
That's
ahead.
her.
Well, you want to do the treasurer's report first?
Just very quickly, the survey went out in the water bills. It's also on the website. It did have a little typo in there. I blame it on Shauna. She wasn't here to proofread me. No, it said 1 through 11, and there were only 10 things on there. So, whoops. That's what happens when I'm doing it at 10:30 at night, the day before water billing. So,
It's too hard to fill out. It's too hard to complete.
it is, yeah. What do you rank number 1?
Yeah.
So we have actually already received 8 back. 1 I'm gonna consider non-responsive because they didn't rank anything. They just marked no down the whole race. So
None of this.
yeah, right. None of this. So we won't count that one, but so out of 7-5, number 1 was law enforcement. We got a weird one. Number 1 was leaf pickup.
What?
Leaf pickup. And then another one said snow and ice.
Yep.
So that's it so far. So I'll bring it back to you when we have more answers, and we're gonna put it in the newsletter. And then I've already had 2 meetings with the state auditor, and so the whole audit will kick off on the 16th. So these were just prep meetings, and they've given me all of the documents they want. So I'll be doing that all week.
So I have a question back about the survey.
Yeah.
We've already committed to the law enforcement. Are we talking about more law enforcement
Well,
after we've committed to?
We just want to know for future reference where their priorities lie. Where do they want their money spent, you know? So some of it we'll try to implement this budget season, but, you know.
So I was looking at it after, okay, if we have some money, where do we spend it? And I wouldn't have voted for law enforcement at first because we've already spent it. We're already
Yeah, but
spending
the public
an increase.
doesn't know that. They don't know that.
Okay.
We're just asking them to list their priorities.
So when you get one that doesn't have law enforcement, you know where it came from.
You write no on the right-hand column. But did you find it hard? I mean, I assumed you were joking, but now that it was an okay survey, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was
It was just very, it was very hard to
So
prioritize.
Shauna took a hand in it, I took a hand in it, we handed it off to Deb to meet the deadline.
Yeah,
It said city council on the bottom, it really probably should have said finance committee.
yeah.
I put
I
city
couldn't-
council because I thought
I did write
everybody
finance
wanted
committee.
I know you
it,
did.
right?
Yeah, but it's just very difficult to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll bring back the results to you. I had one other thing, but it just cleared. Oh, the budget amendment got pulled from this agenda. I just flat out couldn't get it done. There's so much to change in it. it's a bear this time. So, look for the first ordinance, the first touch next month, and then, you know, we'll adopt it in November when we're doing all the other stuff for budget season. Oh, I remember. You have a call letter on your desk. I send these out every year and then didn't realize until last year that a lot of you didn't know how to get into your email. And I've been emailing them to you. So there they are. Please get back to me on your budget items.
And to the point of law enforcement, you would be surprised how some people rank the priority of law enforcement for budget. The city of Spokane Valley spends 62% of their general fund budget on law enforcement. So that is apparently their massive priority. So it's important to understand in ranking the direction of expenditure where if funds should ever become limited, where those funds would be most like to be directed by the public. Yeah. So Lisa.
Yes.
Clerk and code enforcement, and if you want to say anything on any public records, that would be great.
Okay, we currently have 2 code enforcement issues going on, and then a couple research sort of back burner ones that have been ongoing, working on those. And we currently have 4 public records requests in the hopper. One is a huge one, and Brian is helping us with that one. And then the other is one we get all the time that they have like 2 times a year. So that one won't be that hard. And then another one on the property located, this is similar to the one we had for the old B of A building. This one is up on Trent 92 something, anyway. Up on Trent. So they want to know, I think it's possible sale, and so they want a bunch of information, but who knows if it'll go through. And that's what we've got going there. We've had not as many permits lately. They've kind of slowed down, so that's been a little bit slower. And other than that, just doing stuff.
Questions for Lisa in the realm of clerk, code enforcement, public records? Thank you, Lisa. So our facility report, Mr. Shiwi.
I got a quote put together for a tow behind air compressor. I've been on the budget for at least the last 3 or 4 years, I believe, and just never really pulled the trigger on it. It's gonna be real beneficial because, especially since Paul's been gone, it's been on my lap to try to find one around the busiest time of the year, which is sprinkler blowout time. So it's gonna be a relief to not have to go through that. Plus, it'll also come in very useful when we're blowing out cracks for crack sealing or if we can aid the county or whoever's gonna do a crack sealing project in doing some prep work beforehand by blowing out cracks in the streets and stuff. So it's kind of hard to find people that actually want to sell you one. They all just want to rent them. But I found a few people that sell them. Actually, you can see Pape Material Handling came in the lowest, and they were also on the MRSC roster. And at that just under 33,000 price tag, I actually was able to have them add a 100-foot hose reel and a 100-foot of hose, which none of the other ones offer. So that's kind of a little bit of a bonus to make our job a little easier. So hopefully that'll be here. I think he said October 15th at the latest. So that should be right in time for sprinkler blowouts. So that should be good. Since last time we talked about Empire and scrub sealing and chip sealing and everything, Becca, who is the head of the Spokane County Chip Seal Department, she actually came out and drove down the road. She said Empire is one of the better roads she's looked at, and she actually does not recommend a scrub seal. She said they usually say that they're for their far more deteriorated roads, and she just recommends doing a chip seal on it and a fog seal over the top of it, and then we can do our our restriping and everything. I was talking to Andrew from TIB as well, and he said that the timeline for projects for 2025 is closed, but they do keep some stuff open for what they call out of call projects, and he thought this would be a great candidate for that. He said he's going to take it to the TIB board on the 26th of this month and should know by early October if they approve it or not, and we should be able to still possibly get that done in the spring of 25. That would do a chip seal over everything, and then we could restripe it, narrow the lanes down, do our dual bike lanes and everything like we talked about. And we're thinking a tentative match for our obligation, if we did get TIB funding for that, would be like $4 to $5 grand at the most. So that's a way better deal than what we were looking at to even remove the stripes that are up there. The wading pool finished up another good season over Labor Day weekend, and we're gonna keep the splash pad open for a little while longer as long as the weather stays decent. And I appreciate you approving the asphalt patch list. I kind of try to accommodate your two-touch system, but it kind of drug my feet on this year and really wanted to kind of push it through to make sure we could get on their schedule before the end of the season and the plant shuts down. And that paper you had for that too, Diamond Construction came in considerably lower, and they've done work for us before, and it's turned out good. And so should be good. That's all I got.
Questions for Kyle? Thank you, Kyle. Our utilities report, Mr. Erdahl.
Well, the water samples came back good this month. Replaced the curb stop meter and put a new meter vault at 9303 Trent. It was kind of humped up and cars run into it and stuff. And we tried lowering it and actually hit the line, so we had to replace all that. And then 9307 Trent, the water meter was inside the building, so we moved that outside with new curb box, meter and all that. We replaced the leaky angle stop on Fairview Court. Took our herbicide and pesticide samples from all 3 wells. We do that every 9 years. Haven't got the results back yet. Got that in. Pacific Power came out and they did a load test on the Old Park generator, just regular maintenance on that. And then in sewer, I've been talking with Joshua Vila from the county, and we're supposed to be doing the pre-treatment and going through the permits and all that stuff. So I learned about all that and went to a meeting with them in Spokane County and City of Spokane. They have a quarterly meeting discussing all that, getting informed on what to do with that.
Any other questions for Matt? Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it. Ms. Tanyo had a call that she had to take, so her planning report is included in the in your work or in your packet. She's working through quite a few things on business permit licensing, and the periodic update is what's kind of driving everything right now. So legal report, Mr. Worst.
I've got a call I've got to take as well. I don't have anything to report to the council tonight. We've got a few things that we're trying to work on to come forward to the council in the future for consideration, and just can't wait to help Lisa on public records requests. So, I will say, to the city's credit, the city has gotten a lot more proficient in handling its own as opposed to just shipping them over to me and what do you think. So that's been kudos in the training and the work you guys have been doing. So, yep. That's it.
Questions for Mr. Worst? Thank you. So mayor's report this evening. First, we'll kick off. We've had 2 meetings, 2 public open houses on the Argonne Congestion Relief Project, and those have gone well. We've had some people come in and voice their displeasure, and we've had some people come in and say they like the project. They're, everybody's kind of apprehensive about change, but that there's benefit to it. So we have one more scheduled for September the 19th. Next Thursday. That one, I believe everybody, Spokane Valley Fire District, the sheriff will be there, the county will be there, Kyle Rydell from the school board will be there. I believe Josh Kearns from our county commissioner will be there, and I'm not sure if there's any other folks that are gonna be circling through like that, but those folks are gonna be there at that, so if folks wanna talk to them, come and show up, but in the meantime, we are looking at, the right-of-way is now certified as, with the certified right-of-way. The project itself is certified and forms have been submitted for obligation, et cetera. So we are moving ahead with the project as we have agreed in the past. So that is taking on. From the standpoint of the water system, so Matt and I had a meeting today to discuss planning for the replacement of a cast iron water line that had been failing in the vicinity of
Liberty and just west of Vista,
just west of Vista.
or east of Vista.
East of Vista. And that precipitated a discussion of what our reserves are, what we typically take in on a annual basis for capital reserves in order to do capital maintenance O&M on our system. The way our current is set up, our current rate structure is set up, we generate between $70,000 and $80,000 a year for capital reserves for maintenance and upkeep of the water system. We really should be generating somewhere between $150,000 and $160,000 a year. But with respect to this cast iron water line, we have about 4,500 feet of cast iron water line in the city. That, not a rough estimate, it's a pretty decent estimate, but could be a few more, could be a few less feet. That line appears to be failing. We've had issues where we've had our lost water has been increasing, and so we're hoping that as the analysis is being done on the latest rates the latest year over year is being done, that by fixing some of that Liberty water line, we'll call it that might have addressed some of those issues, because typically that cast has been failing for some time and then failed massively. But looking at where we started, when the last time we did a major water line replacement project was when we did Buckeye in 2014. And at Buckeye, we replaced 2,900 feet of cast iron water line. And we spent about $134 a foot all in for cast iron. Oh, don't do that. You're not gonna like the next one. So right now, it's running because of everything. If you're under 1,000 feet of cast iron water line replacement, you're looking at about $500 a foot for replacement. If you are over 2,000 feet, you're looking at about $450 replacement. And this isn't based on engineers' estimates. This is based on some projects that have just been done in the area where these are actual all-in invoices and people have done the past analysis. And that's that's construction. That's not the pre-plan. So some things to consider in this is we're looking at a couple ways that we could potentially attack this situation. If we attack it in a way that we do it piecemeal, we're gonna spend a lot of money and costs are gonna continue to go up as we bite this off. The other issue is it's gonna take us a long time to generate that money to be able to bite these things off in small bits. The other way to do it is potentially look at doing the entire replacement as one package and putting it all out at once. And that might be more cost efficient, but obviously we would have to look for a funding mechanism to do that, because the all-in bill would probably be somewhere around $2 to $2.3 million to do that to get all the cast iron out of our system. So there are a few ways we could look at that, but the long and the short of this is that waterline O&M, capital maintenance, isn't getting cheaper. It's probably not gonna get cheaper, because even if inflation tapers back down to 2%, which it seems to be at right now, people aren't gonna lower their prices just because inflation went down. The prices are now what the prices are now. And that's kind of it. So we're gonna look at a couple ways to come back to council with some ideas of how we could potentially attack this as one large project. We do as we said, there is that opportunity for the Public Works Fund.
PWRSF or something.
Public Works, it's like a revolving.
Trust fund.
The trust fund.
Plus the state revolving fund.
Yeah, so that is an opportunity that comes up in June. But we have to have a tight project for that. They are a different animal than the state drinking water fund that we did Buckeye, that we're still paying on that we did Buckeye with. That may require us, if we really wanna try and position ourselves for that, we may need to do the engineering up front so we have a shovel-ready project to take to the Public Works Trust Fund and look at that. But we have the engineer researching that more to figure out if we really do need a shovel-ready project. The other issue is that Public Works Trust Fund typically does not fund projects of that dollar amount. It's typically for smaller sub $500,000 type projects. The way I understand it, you might have a different opinion on
I'm
water
not sure
stuff.
what they're doing today.
But they're not, because that fund has not been loaded up by the legislature in quite a while, they don't have the amount of funding behind them that they used to have to be able to assist projects. So there are couple other ways we could looking at funding a whole project all at once. The short of it goes back to Shauna's question about the water system and how we make sure that we're generating the necessary revenue in order to deliver money for capital projects. Because we are, as a city, we are vigorously and always painting the standpipe. And right now, that maintenance on that standpipe is probably, from a utility standpoint, the most critical thing we have in this city. That can never fall off. If we take good care of it, it might last 100 years. The cost on redoing a standpipe would be unbelievable. And I can't even, we're looking at tens of millions of dollars to build a new standpipe of that sort of system, if not, I don't know the last time you looked at anything like that.
No.
But that is our most mission critical maintenance that we have to do.
And we got the interiors to.
Interior and exterior, and vents and all the rust points and everything like that. So there really needs to be some consideration and some discussion, because we're understanding that to do the general maintenance on the water system, just keep it running and making sure that we're not, as you said, pumping 100 gallons but only getting 50 down the line, plus maintain our big capital items like the water tower, plus address the failing issues, which would be the cast iron pipe. That's a lot of capital that needs to be planned out. And what we're finding with the cast iron is at a point where when it goes, it goes. Cause how much did you dig up last time?
We had 2 serious breaks.
About how far apart though? It was only like,
It's like 100 feet or less, I think.
Yeah, a couple houses apart.
Yeah, so that stuff when it goes, and then we're out there emergencying it, putting it back together. So we've got a lot of linear feet of that stuff still left to do. And back to Shauna's question, or back to Shauna's comment and observation, which was really good, is back to that whole idea of we have a limited base of ratepayers. And so we've got projects we're gonna have to plan out and program out and do, and we're gonna have to look at how we're going to fund those projects to keep the system itself chugging along. So gonna work with Matt on looking at some potential ideas for maybe just tackling the cast iron all at once and looking at what that would look like and what a potential funding mechanism is. But from the long and the short of it is, even if we weren't tackling the cast iron, we're still not generating enough capital reserve for water that we need to maintain the system that we're at. So we're gonna have to look at how are we going to address making a capital fund for that, because we should at least be looking at the idea that at some point, if Millwood stays Millwood, there will come a point in the future that that standpipe's gotta be replaced, because it will meet the end of its expected life somewhere along the line. No matter how many, otherwise it's gonna be made out of paint. And we can't use lead paint on it anymore, so. That's kind of the thrust of where I wanted to get with that. So on that happy note, I have nothing else for council for presentation tonight. Any questions for me? So that concludes the mayor's report. So council information, these are items that are included in your packet for no action or discussion, which is the sheriff's report. And that brings us to, because I misplaced that, great. That brings us to, I wish we put the agenda all on one page.
I know it's too long.
Oh, thank you. So that brings us to our public remarks, which is, let's see that. Yeah. This is the opportunity for citizens to address the council, either in person or by submitting their remarks. We ask that in-person speakers limit themselves to 2 minutes and follow the citizen participation guidelines. It's posted on the City of Millwood website or available at City Hall. So we have we had some comments that were public remarks that were received. Do you remember how many? 2? 2 ones that were attached to your packet. Both of those are on the.
Those are both in the packet, and then there were 3 additional that were actually comments, not remarks.
Right, so for public remarks, we have 2, they were included in your packet.
Yes.
And we have 2 speakers. Our first speaker is Todd Beasy. Mr. Beasy, come on up.
Good evening, council and mayor and staff. I have copies of the Millwood Comprehensive Plan, pages 9 and 10. And they talk about visioning, and especially from 1993, the vision of the citizens of Millwood. And I've highlighted some areas there. And especially important is on the back side. The mayor at the last meeting said there wasn't this is in response to the mayor's wondering about
people did not want Argonne Road widened. And here from the 1993 Millwood Community Service, Community Visioning Project, page 10, if you turn it over, down about 2/3 down, Argonne Road should not be widened because it would further divide the community and increase the difficulty that pedestrians presently experience when crossing the road. That was back in 1993. Well, we fast forward to about 2 years ago, and there was a vision presented by Matt of Welch Comer on behalf of the city of Millwood, and the vision was presented to standing room only crowd of Millwood citizens at Stockwell's. And when he was done with his presentation, which he did a very fine job of the presentation, like 99% of the people did not like the content of his presentation. And what they especially didn't like about the content of his presentation was the widening of Argonne and its unintended consequences. And I've mentioned these unintended consequences to you before, and so I'm not going to go over them. The open house meeting have been attended by Millwood residents and others who aren't residents. And someone was asking, why aren't there more people here? Why aren't there more business people here? Well, I wondered about that, and I went and asked some of the business people. And what they told me was that it's not going to do any good to come and talk to you. One of the business owners expressed his opinion, quote, "Fuck," unquote. That's right. That's what he thinks of the project. Another one, quote, "Shit," unquote. That's what they think of the widening of Argonne. The ambience, character, and feeling of the Central Business District is going to be negatively affected. I'm asking all of you who are responsible for having the project go or doing away with the widening of Argonne. There's other aspects that are good. It's the widening of Argonne that's not. I'm asking you who have control over that to vote no on widening Argonne, but other aspects, yes. So the project can continue, but change the focus of the project, please. Thank you. And this isn't coming just from me. It's coming from your residents. It's not just the business owners. It's the residents of Millwood. From 1993 to the present, we don't want Argonne widened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we have Doug Sadler. Mr. Sadler.
Mr. Mayor and the City Council, this is Doug Sadler, 8612 East Bridgeport. My concerns were over the water and the selling of the water and looking at the first draft of the ordinance. And tonight, I think you displayed a good start, a very good due diligence. The questions that you asked were good and heading in the right direction, so I commend you. And I ask you to do that thoroughly, completely, take all the time that it takes. Because if we're going to do this, it's got to be done right. I'm sure, the mayor is saying he's going to look at those. I had trouble with it and with the cons against it too. So looking at both sides, is it really something that Millwood wants to do? And if we're going to do it, let's do it right. The main question, and I couldn't hear Mr. Wurst when he was talking about things, but at the top of page 2, in case of conflicts between the code and the contract will prevail. It doesn't seem right to me. Why would we enter into a contract that opposes our code? It seems like to me that out of our code, we would create a contract. We would offer people water. Here's the contract that we offered to you on, and there's no conflict. So my observations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So any other comments? Second call for public comments. Third and final call for public comments. Seeing none, that closes our period for public remarks, sorry. Council comments, Ms. Vesey.
So, fellow council members, I did try to close the loop on the rounding up, rounding down. What we do as far as the code, I did reach out and I was advised because we were going through the comprehensive, planning session that will already be addressed. And so I'm just wanting you to know that I did try to close that loop.
As long as it's codified.
As long as it's codified.
I don't have any comments. The survey was a bit rushed. Sean and I got a little time on it. We'll do a better job on the next one.
The survey is great, it's just hard to
his
make
head.
those decisions.
It's in his head.
That's all I got.
All right, I thank everybody for doing everything, getting things done and staying busy.
Millwood Days was great this year, the largest.
Yeah.
I think, I didn't count booths, but we had a lot more than in the past, and cars. It was great.
Green said 44, I think.
44.
Yeah.
I like the survey. Thanks for the hard work. Very nice. That's it.
What was your number 3?
So with that, we'll close the council remarks. Next is announcements. We have the budgeting process going to begin next month. So we will be doing not only 2024 amendments, but we will begin the process for budgeting for 2025. I remind you that if we are going to complete this with no extra meetings, we will need full attendance, quorum +1, for everybody to make all the rest of the meetings. We will be on a strict schedule, so if we do delay any item from first touch to second touch, that will require a special meeting. Anything else? I don't think there's anything coming up. Leaf pickup is still far in the offing, all that stuff, so that's good. So our next meeting is set for October 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And if there is no further business before us, I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? This meeting is adjourned.